Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by A.G. Hines Company. Top-of-the-line tools and building materials for your next home improvement project. More than 100 years of history here in Knoxville. Plus, they've been for more than 3 decades up in Bluntville. So if you got friends in the Tri-Cities or if you do some stuff up there, you can see A.G. Hines Company in the Tri-Cities area up in Bluntville. A.G. Hines Company. Start your next project right there at Hines Street in downtown Knoxville. Okay, let's welcome in the, I'll welcome in a second. This is my problem on the, my director's right, I'm wrong. February Funk, I threw these numbers out last week. Well, those numbers dropped again this weekend, but Tennessee, since Rick Barnes has been here, they went at a 75% clip in November, 75.5 in December, 65 in January, and then it drops off. His worst month is February. It only feels like March is the worst month. It actually gets better in March. And then let's take a look. These are the numbers that are really shocking. I went back. Here's the last 6 games. This is what they did November to January. You see Tennessee on top, their opponent on bottom. Bottom line is Tennessee's shooting has gone in the tank in February from 44.5% to 36%, while their opponent's percentages have gone up. Tennessee from 3 has gone from 34% to about 26.5%. They've dropped again. The opponents have gone from 22% to 35%. That's a big jump. Free throw percentage, you're also down there. This makes me wonder if this team isn't a little bit worn down, and you throw that into February, they tend to take a little bit of a break. Speaking of breaks, fast break points continues to be a story. 6 games, Tennessee has 9 fast break points. You may break double digits this week. So 9 fast break points. The opponent has 63, which is just remarkable. Now I welcome in Josh Ward from 99.1 The Sports Animal. Congratulations. You're dealing with a ticked off John today. It stresses me out because I realize you play a 40-game schedule, you're going to lose games. But the people who have my phone number and my email address, they don't realize this. So basketball for me is just up and down. Every game is just death and misery and horror. And I'm sitting there thinking, none of it matters till March, but this gets on my nerves. So I thought I'd bring that angry energy to today's show. Josh, we were talking about post play hasn't been good. Mark, you had some numbers to throw out. Your thoughts on what the big problem is right now for Tennessee? And we just looked at those numbers as well. I think they tend to wear them down. Just looking at Rick Barnes' history, I think they run the hell out of him in practice. I think he's got that one end of the court to the other, 40 minutes of defense. I think he wears them down. Just my theory. Thoughts on what's up?
Yeah, I mean, that may take a percentage of it. I'd say it's a number of factors. The last stat you just showed, which you hit on, I think, last week on the show, the lack of fast break points. If you're so good defensively and you're forcing turnovers, you want to find easier ways to score, right? If you're putting so much energy into the defensive side, it's one game, but Kentucky, they put up 27 threes. They're not a good three-point shooting team, and maybe that's contagious. Second half, though, to the energy part of it, they were much better in the second half offensively, right? They scored 35. Rick Barnes said should have scored 45. They hit some free throws. They may get closer to that. So maybe tired legs is part of it, but this is also the deepest team he's had. So that shouldn't be as much of a factor. And the energy was great against Alabama on Wednesday night. And they looked like they could have gone another 20 minutes and just worn down Alabama. So I don't have a great answer, but I would say I would start with what I just said. Fast break points, easier points out of how good you can be defensively. Create some offense that way.
I will say this again, though. I do think your energy level at home can be impacted by that crowd.
Probably so.
But still, I don't know that this is the answer. That's a theory. You could go the other way. He's had a better rotation this year on the court than he has in the past. So he's playing more guys, more minutes. Mark, your thoughts on post. I know you had some numbers there that we started to go down that last segment.
Yeah, I mean, the post play is, Olivier Euro, so those guys are averaging about 32 points in our last few wins versus like less than 20 in our losses. I do think post play needs to step up. That's where our ceiling is much higher when Olivier, Adu, those guys are getting 20, 25 points a game. To me, the stats, when you look at that, I compare it mostly to January because, November, December, You got mid-major games.
Schedule gets tougher, no question. You're in the
Correct.
SEC game. I meant to say that. Yep.
The scouting in the SEC as you're starting to play teams, it's different. But also you would think that with our defensive emphasis that teams wouldn't be shooting as good as that. They wouldn't be shooting better later in the year because our scouting would improve and we'd be able to defend teams better. So I do think it's whether it's mental fatigue or physical fatigue, those are two different things.
Yeah.
That does come into play. towards the end of the year with how the program is done.
And I know we've looked at, in past years, we do this every few years. So at some point, I'm starting to, maybe we see the wrong pattern. But I know Chuck's talked about how they've stressed the defense very hard in practice. And we've heard other people talk about practice. I've gone back and looked at numbers in the past years. Tennessee played a greater percentage of minutes for their starters than other teams that made it. Not the case this year. But I just wonder if there's not a tired factor. Maybe it's more of a mental tired factor than it is a physical tired factor. But that whole wearing down, when you look at those numbers, something's changed.
Yeah.
And when your offense is down and the other team's offense is up, that suggests to me dead legs a little bit. But your thoughts, Vince?
And those numbers are despite the fact that we saw Jemai Meshack put up one of the best individual defensive performances that we can remember in recent years for a Tennessee player. He was that good against Brandon Miller and then overall. And yet you still have those numbers being down. That tells you you had your big explosive games where they weren't defending the three. I think the mental side of it is a factor. And it's not just the fact that they're giving up points, and it's not just the points. It's everything is extended. It's a grind. And they even, at times, I think, it's the decision making. So maybe you're working so hard on the defensive end that maybe you make one bad pass, or you have a second thought in getting into the basket trying to finish. The decision making has been impacted by their mental fatigue, in my opinion, and it's taken a toll. You get outscored by over 70 in fast break points and over 20 in free throws. Everything is very difficult for them.
Yep.
A couple quick things, kind of practical things. Of one, defensively, sometimes you can switch things up defensively. We've played less zone this year than we've probably ever had, and Barnes hasn't played a lot of zone, but you can give different looks. We've tried a little bit, which we've got away from in February, maybe because they're tired, but some of the three-quarter court press, picking up pressure a little bit, again, to keep the offense on their heels as opposed to us continue. Like, when we're scouting, if you guard us the same way every game, we're pretty good coaches. We're going to figure out different ways to attack you.
If you do this, we're going to
because
attack you
it's the
doing
same thing
that. Yeah.
every time. So just being able to switch some things up, both offensively and defensively, to kind of keep them guessing and them questioning their own decision making.
Josh, close it out here.
Yeah, I can't tell you why, but in recent games where they've had these woes, they've made some late game mistakes that have been very costly.
Right.
And it put them in a position where luck is also a factor. Like Ken Palm's numbers that we sometimes run, he actually has a luck stat. And they had some bad luck with buzzer beaters against them, but mistakes that Tennessee made put Missouri and Vandy in position to then get lucky, hit some shots, and the record gets worse for Tennessee.
I think it says something that you have the number one numbers analyst in all of basketball, and he's got a stat for luck. I think I got a lot of people that say, no, it's not just about hitting or missing. Good chunk of it. All right. When we come back, the NCAA, what are we doing here? When we come back, the NCAA gave Tennessee a 3 seed yesterday. That was before the Kentucky loss. What does Tennessee wind up with seed-wise? We'll take a quick look at the schedule. Then I want to come back and save plenty of time to talk about, does Tennessee need an offensive coordinator and why that ain't happening? Come on back on the Sports Source.
Away from home? Watch the Sports Source live at WATE.com.